Hello and welcome to the 8th lecture of this online training program on foundational education leadership for early childhood care and education. After talking about the curricular aspect of foundational education stage in the first lecture of week 2, now we are going to move further into the pedagogical aspect. What all pedagogical techniques to use. And before that also, in the pedagogical aspects today, as you would have realized that in the curricular aspects we emphasize more on the attitude aspect and the habit aspect of it, and we did not cover the knowledge and skill aspect to that extent. So that is why we will be discussing more about the knowledge and skill aspect of it today, because the attitude and habit aspect of it, the pedagogy is not that difficult. It is the pedagogy of action that needs to be dealt with on a regular basis, and when we provide a blueprint, we will provide a daily plan as to how it needs to be cultivated, and the day needs to be divided into various hours, and similarly the week needs to be divided into days which are specifically planned for certain kind of activities, certain kind of uh, actions, and by that it becomes a habit. And as far as attitudes are concerned, some attitudes are a collection of habits, and some others are actually a life. Every time a certain kind of a problem occurs, they serve as the five habits, attitudes that we discussed about, serve as the guiding light towards how to convince students and how to nurture students certain kinds of attitudes, because these are the attitudes to be nurtured, and in every scenario they are going to be applicable. So you need to talk to them keeping in mind these five attitudes that you want to nurture, and accordingly you need to talk, and you need to also imbibe these attitudes in yourself. Then only you will be able to do that. So that is how, as teacher leaders or education leaders, you need to proceed. As foundational education leaders, you need to understand that the habits and attitudinal aspects need to be inculcated in you, then only it can be translated to the children. So maybe as education leaders, you might be a little less in the knowledge and skills, and you would want your children to be more knowledgeable and skillful than you are as far as the knowledge and skill aspects are concerned. But in the habit and the attitudinal aspect, you have to be a role model. That is how you have to understand it. You have to be a role model for them, because you are the adult they are looking up to. And then as far as knowledge and skills are concerned, you can give example of several role models from different fields or professions where they are getting interested in, and their interest, inclination or passion starts to be identified in. So with that, this kind of introduction, let us move further. So if you talk about this old Chinese proverb is there regarding learning, which talks about that I hear and I forget, I see and I know, I do and I understand. So there are three levels of learning. At the hearing stage, only the person is likely to forget. When he sees it, he is likely to know it. But when he does it, he understands. So practice is the best form through which knowledge and skills can be imbibed, and even habits can be developed. And practice is also through which new attitudes and some kind of attitudes and values can be developed. So that is why learning by doing will be our broader framework of pedagogical framework through which we will proceed in our whole thing. Then there is whole this in the pedagogies of action we are talking about. There is this planned and spontaneous aspect, and child initiated versus adult initiated. So this is the spectrum that is there. So one needs to understand that where what is lying. So whatever activity is happening in the classroom or in the home, also in the home learning environment also, what kind of activity it is, and in this spectrum or in this 2 by 2 matrix, where does it lie? Is it all unplanned and spontaneous only? Then it will go with the flow and nothing will result. So there should be some kind of a planned kind of action, then only there will be some kind of a result you can expect. So that is why some amount of planning needs to be ingrained in, and there should be a balance between what is initiated by the adult and what is initiated by the child, but it needs to be directed in a certain way so that it reaches the desired ends, and the desired ends needs to be also found out by an understanding between the adult and the child, and some spontaneity and some aspects of spontaneity needs also to be ingrained in the whole process. So that is also to be understood, that everything does not become a non-spontaneous kind of a planned kind of a thing, because then it also creates blocks the opportunities for new kind of possibility. So that also needs not be done. So some kind of a spontaneity and some kind of a balance between adult and child initiation should be there, but planning is very important in this regard. That needs to be understood. Yeah, the course of planning can change depending on requirement, depending on if something is felt that the child's life needs to take a new course, then the whole plan needs to be thrown to the dustbin and a new plan can be made. Nothing like that. If some kind of a break arises between the adult and the child and there is some kind of a conflict, then that conflict needs to be resolved in a certain kind of a manner. And if it is by uh, coming up with a new plan B, because primarily the life journey should be smooth and it should be fulfilling and enjoying. That is the primary purpose that as education leaders we need to understand, and we need to cultivate that kind of life for all the children whom we are interacting with. Coming to the pedagogy of verbal and linguistic intelligence. So verbal and linguistic intelligence, as we have been talking about, is students who love words and use them as primary way of thinking and solving problems. They are good writers, speakers, and both. They use to persuade, argue, entertain, and to teach. Learning activities and project ideas can be completing crossword puzzles with vocabulary words, playing games and Scrabble Junior and Boggle, writing short stories, writing feature articles, writing a letter to the editor, writing to state representative, creating poems using digital resources such as electronic libraries, desktop publishing, word games, word processing, creating poems, entertaining their entering their original poems in a poetry context, listening to a storyteller, studying the habits of a good speaker, telling a story to the class participant. So if you see all this, you will feel that this is at a later stage that can happen. So you have to, as education leader, you have to inculcate this habit at a very early stage. And in the verbal and linguistic intelligence, you have to ensure that the reading part and the writing part is happening at a snail's pace, it is fine, but the listening part and the speaking part needs to grow at a faster pace. So the reading writing can happen at a certain amount of pace, but the listening and speaking and communicating part needs to develop in even in students at an early age from 3 to 6 years at a faster pace, and exercises on listening, exercises on communicating needs to be part of the whole process, right? So that is very, very important, and these are things which can occur at a later stage, maybe when the children are in the age group of 6 to 8 years. So these kind of activities may be proposed at a earlier stage. Some kind of a flowery picture, and the letters need to be posited to them in a certain manner, in a musical and rhythmic manner, so that they are able to listen to it, and those letters and alphabets stick to them, so that they are able to recognize it, and then from those letters they are able to form, also identify the words. So this is a very crucial stage, because literacy is also happening at this stage. So that is why it is also crucial to understand that using pedagogy is important. But what kind of a pedagogy? Some pedagogies may be for a later stage. The listening part and the communicating part can be developed at the early stage. With regards to the language, it becomes important that the language spoken at home needs to be one of the languages the child is studying as a formal language. So, say for example, Hindi in case of North Indian homes, Gujarati in case of Gujarat, Marathi in case of Maharashtra, similarly Telugu in case of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, Kannada in case of Karnataka, Tamil in case of Tamil Nadu, Malayalam in case of the Kerala, similarly Udiya in case of Odisha, and in West Bengal case it can be the um, Bengali language. Similarly, Bhojpuri and Maithili can be the languages in case of Bihar. So these are some of the examples that are there. So what happens because of this is that one of the primary languages this child is studying is also the language which is being spoken at home. So he starts developing some kind of expertise in that language. Apart from that, one needs to ensure that some kind of a communication practice is happening in the foreign language. Say for example English. English is being taught at all schools, at everywhere, because this is now a global language. So that is why one needs to ensure, but it is a foreign language for several children, and it is children feel it is very difficult for children who are first generation learners to learn it, because there is no help from their parents. So here the parents have to take help of other parents and teachers, as well as technology can be very helpful here. A lot of new technologies have come up which help the children learn these languages, but one needs to ensure that the children does not get too much engrossed into the negative aspects of social media and all that. So that needs to be ensured. So one needs to be an adult needs to ensure that learning process is happening through the whole engagement through technology also, and also health aspects of it needs to be taken care of, because when one is watching laptop or a mobile phone, or listening to a mobile phone for long, it can affect the eyes and the ears. So that needs to be protected, and protective equipment need to be used, and not very high volume or high brightness kind of screens and sounds need to be listened to and watched. So that is what needs to be taken care of. Moving further, with regards to the logical and mathematical intelligence, logical and mathematical students enjoy working with numbers. They can easily interpret data, analyze abstract patterns. They have a well developed ability to reason and are good at chess and computer programming. They think in terms of cause and effect. Learning activities can be the following: playing math games like Manakala, Domino, chess, checkers, Monopoly, searching for patterns in the classroom, school, outdoors, and home, conducting experiments to demonstrate science concepts, using math and science software such as Math Blaster, which reinforces math skills, or King's Rules, or a logic game, using science toolkits for science programs, designing alphabetic and numeric codes, making up analogy. So these are very very important. Even I would go on to say that in this era, starting when the children is in the age group of 6 to 8 years, he or she can also participate in, say for example, learning coding and all that. That is going to develop the logical and mathematical intelligence to a certain extent. So that needs to be done. But what to do with children who are 3 to 6 years? So 3 to 6 years, again the listening aspect of it, and then adult needs to practice it and help them in counting, reverse counting, understand the concept of reverse counting itself, that when things are getting subtracted, then the idea of reverse counting has meaning. So those kind of things, simple arithmetic needs to be planned in a certain manner. Then calendars and clock needs to be looked at in a very mathematical and analytical way. So that is how the logical and mathematical intelligence can be ingrained even at an early age. So if there is a calendar or a clock that needs to be watched, and the children needs to be taught that this is how you look at a digital clock, you look at an analog clock, this is what the meaning is. It's difficult, but you need to expose to them and continuously train them on those ideas. Similarly, calendars can be used in a certain way to train the analytical intelligence of children. Also, a lot of toys from trash, and I would like to quote Arvind Gupta toys here. A lot of experiment, science experiment, and also mathematical experiments and mathematical puzzles are available at his website. So that can be utilized as a pedagogical resource for your children. And these are, as I have already told, the toys from trash. So these are from equipments which are readily available in your household, and sometimes it is you are not using it, and these are trash for you. So you can utilize it for exposing children to certain kind of scientific principles and all that. So if this starts happening at an early age, children start becoming logically and mathematically intelligent. And certain children will show this kind of intelligence to a greater extent because of genetic or other factors. So that can happen. And similar for that is true for all kinds of intelligence. In fact, nothing to do with the logical or mathematical intelligence. In general, for an intelligence, the depiction can be because of the genetic or several other environmental factors. The spatial intelligence or the picture smart students are strong in spatial thinking, process information in pictures and images. They have excellent visual receptive and excellent fine motor skills. Students with this intelligence use their eyes and hands to make artistic and creatively designed projects. They can build with Legos, read maps, put together 100-piece jigsaw puzzles, etc. So, as already outlined, the pedagogy for them can be utilizing Legos as a and Lego games, help exposing them to maps, then jigsaw puzzles, etc. can be useful learning activities and project ideas from them. Taking photographs for assignments and classroom newsletters, taking photographs for school yearbook, school newsletters, science assignments, using. So whatever we are suggesting here is for the later 6 to 8 years, but for 3 to 6 years I would discuss what all can be done. Taking notes on concept mapping, mind mapping, using pictorial models such as flowcharts, visual maps, Venn diagrams, and timelines to connect new material to known information, using maps to study geographical location discussed in class, illustrating poems for the class poetry book by drawing, or using computer software, using VR system software. So, as already outlined, that children of these kind who have spatial intelligence need to be exposed to maps, need to be exposed to jigsaw puzzles, need to be exposed to Legos, and various kinds of other games are available, and that build the spatial intelligence of children, and this game can be played by the children. Apart from that, what can be done is, even children can be exposed to globes and maps, and they can start understanding the world they live in and the globe, and they can also watch the night, if some kind of a telescope is available in the school, they can watch the night sky, etc. They can also, what they can also do is use the virtual reality. Virtual reality and augmented reality has come a big way, so that can also be utilized, but it should be utilized with a caution. So when we will be discussing about technology, we will also discuss about how to utilize virtual reality and augmented reality systems to a certain extent to fruitful use, so that it is helping in children's learning. Coming to the musical intelligence, as discussed in the curricular part, children who are musically intelligent think, feel, and process information primarily through sound. They have superior ability to perceive, compose, and perform music. Musically smart people constantly hear music notes in their heads, writing their own songs and music about content area topics, putting original poems to music and then performing for the class, setting a poem to music and then performing it for the class, incorporating a poem they have written with a melody they already know, listening to music from different historical periods. So listening part is very very important. So these all what we are talking about is more for 6 to 8 year olds, but the listening part can happen even at a very early stage. Obviously you need to take care that you are playing it at a appropriate volume so that the ears do not get damaged. But listening helps develop the appreciation for music, and you also are able to identify that there is deeper appreciation for music, or there is deeper appreciation for music or not in the child. So that kind of a identification process starts happening even at an early stage, even before the child is 3 years old. Tape recording a poem over appropriate background music, soft music if described a kitten, loud music if they are mad about pollution, using rhythmic and clapping to memorize math facts and other content area information. So math should also, so musical intelligence or intelligences should also be used as a pedagogical technique. So other kinds of intelligences can be developed by substantiating it by using the musical or rhythmic kind of a intelligence and utilizing that as a pedagogical technique. Listening to series that teach concepts like alphabet, parts of speech, and states and capitals. Examples can be Schoolhouse Rock, and there are several kinds of these kind of softwares and CDs, etc., that are available. So listening becomes a very important aspect of developing the musical intelligence, and then humming and creating new sounds and singing, etc., and recording their own sound, and whether that is rhythmic in nature or not, and understanding whether it is rhythmic or not becomes, and nowadays it's very readily available. The recording system is embedded in all the mobile phones, and there is plethora of mobile phones available with uh, children, people from every socioeconomic background. So that comes of very much of help for children's learning. So children can record their own voices and their own music and their own rhythms, and they can find whether that kind some kind of musical intelligence is coming forth or not. Bodily and kinesthetic intelligence. So similarly, bodily and kinesthetic students are highly aware of the world through touch and movement. There is a special harmony between their bodies and mind. We have been talking about it. They control their bodies with grace, expertise, and athleticism. Learning activities and project ideas can be one very important thing, can be playing a lot of outdoor games. So that is very important. Then can be creating costumes for role playing skits and simulation, performing skits or acting out scenes from books or historical events, designing props for playing skits, playing games like Twister and Simon Says, using chariots to act out characters in a book, vocabulary, animals or content area topics, participating in scavenger hunt, searching for items related to a theme or unit, acting out concepts, participation in movement breaks during the day, building objects using blocks, cubes, or Legos to represent concepts from content area lessons, using electronic motion simulation games. So that should be used with a little bit of caution. Otherwise, the children also get addicted to it. But playing outdoor games, I would suggest, is the best way out. And in this period of COVID, one thing that can be done with children of 3 to 6 years old, that they can play with soft balls or soft toys. They can play indoor games, and the parents can participate in that, and 1 hour needs to be devoted to this kind of a intelligence development. Interpersonal intelligence or people smart. Students strong in interpersonal intelligence have a natural ability to interact with, relate to, and get along with others effectively. They are good leaders. They use their insight about others to negotiate, persuade, and obtain information. They like to interact with others and usually have lots of friends. Learning activities can be working in cooperative groups to design and complete projects, working in pairs to learn math facts, interviewing people with knowledge about content area topics, tutoring younger students or classmates, using puppets to put on a puppet show. So, two or three things which are very important are: first is tutoring young students. So, peer teaching is a very important method to learn as well as to develop this skill of interpersonal intelligence. Then, second thing is working in groups of two or more. So, working in groups for your projects, for your other things, so ensure that children are doing that. Thirdly, and most importantly, is playing outdoor games, and that too in team games. So if team games like cricket or football, then children need to be exposed at an early age, and that is how their understanding of team spirit and attitudes uh, with other people and interpersonal skills, etc., starts building. So this is what needs to be done in this regard. Intrapersonal intelligence. Children with strong intrapersonal intelligence have deep awareness of their feelings, ideas, and goals. Students with this intelligence usually need time alone to process and create. So things like yoga, etc., can be very important. So yoga should be embedded in the curriculum from the very beginning, and yogic exercises to understanding as children grow. They should be exposed to the eight uh, Art Ashtanga Yoga, the eight limbs of yoga, and all that the children need to be exposed to. The Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. So all of them they need to get exposed to. Writing reflective papers on content area topics, writing essays, writing a literary autobiography, writing goals for future. One of the key things that can be very helpful in developing this kind of intelligence is daily diary writing, and that kind of exercise can help. So children need to develop that kind of a habit, and children with this kind of a intelligence should be persuaded to develop a habit of daily diary writing. Naturalistic or nature smart children are those who so interest in the environment. These children enjoy being in nature and want to protect it from pollution. Students with strong naturalistic intelligence recognize and categorize plants, elements, and wrongs, caring for classroom plants and as well as plants in the vicinity of their homes. Similarly, caring for classroom pets and other animals in the vicinity where the child lives. Sorting and classifying natural objects such as leaves and rock, researching animal habitats, observing natural surroundings, uh, observing or participating in playground, and in this context nature trips, etc., can be very helpful, as well as watching documentaries on nature when the child is in the age group of 6 to 8 years can be also quite helpful. So in this lecture, we discuss about the various pedagogical techniques can be used that can be used in greater detail. We have also discussed it earlier in the first week as well as while discussing the curricular aspects. So now we will be moving further and we will be discussing about the use of technology and how to delimit the use of technology and nurture other kinds of intelligences using technology and other forms of pedagogy. So we will, our next lecture will be primarily focused on the technological use, and in this era, technology is going to play a very important role. So how technology can play a very important role in educating children, and how technology, children should be protected from adverse effects of technology, that also needs to be thought of, and a proper plan should be put in place where technology used to the minimal for maximum benefit, but it does not harm the children as well. Thank you. Look forward to see you in the next lecture. Please do read the prescribed reading after this lecture. Thank you.